Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for everyone who showed up this evening. I want to start off by making sure we're very clear about what we're talking about today. We're talking about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and its continuing impact. We're talking about the largest act of domestic terrorism in the history of this country, where a peaceful, vibrant, affluent community of Black people right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, were bombed for being nothing but Black and successful. Over $50 to $100 million, $50 to $100 million in property damage alone. At least 300 plus people were killed. We will never even know the full magnitude of how many people were killed. But we do know that this peaceful community called Greenwood was over about 40 blocks, city blocks, and it had businesses, doctors' offices, lawyers, restaurants, pharmacists, people owned private planes and luxurious hotels. All of this was destroyed because of greed and resentment and white supremacy on May 31st, going into June 1st, 1921. So literally today, we're just 60 days from the 100-year centennial of this horrific event. And yet to this day, not one penny has been paid in reparations. Not one person has been arrested. No one has been convicted. And that's why we're here. I am attorney Demario Solomon Simmons. Law is my ministry. Justice is my passion. I have the great honor to represent the last three known living survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And next slide, if you will. So today I welcome you to our monthly Justice for Greenwood virtual town hall, where you will learn about what we are doing in our community, get respect, restitution, and repair to get justice. I'm going to tell you about where we are in our legal battle. You're going to learn about some amazing things we found recently with insurance issues. We're going to talk to some descendants tonight, and then we're going to answer some questions that we've gotten from our community over the last couple of weeks. Before I get to all of that, I want to give a special shout out to our national partners. Our national partners, first and foremost, my mentor, Brian Stevenson of the Equal Justice Initiative. He has been with us from day one, working with us, guiding us, mentoring us so we can get the justice for our community. Our next national partner is my friend, Nicole Alston Hillary of the Human Rights Watch. She is the U.S. Director for the Human Rights Watch. Again, another organization that has been on ground with us for multiple years working with us to get justice for Greenwood. And lastly, but not least, another one of my good friends, mentors, and one of the baddest women in the world, Sherilyn Eiffel, the Director General of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. These are some of our national partners. We actually have a few more that I'm going to talk about in our next meeting to bring online. But let's get back to the issue at hand and make sure we're understanding, why do we have this Justice for Greenwood movement? Why are we pushing so hard to try to get justice for what happened to our community in 1921 and the continuing harm? We must remember that it was the city of Tulsa government, it was the county government, and other business leaders like the chamber who deputized a mob of thousands of white, deputized them, gave them guns, direction, and authority to pour in and invade the peaceful Greenwood community, to loot, to kill, to burn, to do anything they wanted to do to, quote unquote, drive the Negro out of Tulsa. And within 24 hours, you have businesses that have been built over a lifetime, burnt down to the ground, completely destroyed. And did they arrest anyone? No. They blamed the Black victims. They blamed the black citizens. They exiled many of us. They held thousands in concentration camps. They killed untold numbers. Until this very day, not one arrest, not one conviction, and no reparations. But we continue to fight because we have three living survivors. And these survivors and other descendants, they didn't get the opportunity to get their insurance claims met. They didn't get the opportunity to recoup anything. Remember, I told you it's up to $50 to $100 million conservatively and property damage alone. How much is a life worth? How much is the fact that you don't know where your brother is, your mother is, your father is, your son, your daughter? How much is that actually worth? That's what happened here in Tulsa. That's what happened to Greenwood. That's why we say justice for Greenwood. And if you believe in justice for Greenwood, hashtag now, justice for Greenwood. If you believe in getting justice for these 3 living survivors, we have Mother Randall, 106 years old, Leslie Benefield Randall. Let me calm down. I get so passionate about this. Let me calm down just a little bit. And then we had the only known living male survivor of the massacre. That is Mr. Hughes Van Ellis. We call him Uncle Red. And Mr. Ellis's sister is Mrs. Viola Fletcher. We call her Mother Fletcher. She will be 107 years old May 10th. We're going to talk more about that. So we believe that these people deserve justice. We believe these people deserve repair. We believe these people deserve reparations. I'm sure many of you believe that, but you know who does not believe in justice? Who does not believe in reparations? I'm going to show you right here in this video who does not believe that these people deserve justice.
What about reparations in this area?
I don't have it. I know people have opinions on both sides when it comes to reparations, but the things I'm focused on, that's just not cash payments to people. Getting into trying to make cash payments to people, it divides the community on something that we really need to be united around.
That is the mayor of the city of Tulsa. The same city that destroyed Greenwood, the same city that has oppressed Black people in Tulsa since the 1921 massacre. He says he doesn't believe in reparations. He doesn't believe in cash payments. So for all of you that do believe that people like Mother Randall and Mother Fletcher and Mr. Ellis and descendants in this community at large deserves compensation for what was lost, compensation for the businesses burned, compensation for the lives lost, I want you to go to www.tinyurl/TulsaOs. And I want you to tell Mayor Bynum, as the mayor of the city of Tulsa, why you believe that Tulsa does owe and why you believe that Tulsa should pay, particularly these 3 100-year-old plus survivors before they die. If you believe in that, go to and tell Mayor Bynum Tulsa owes, and I want you to also put a hashtag Justice for Greenwood in your chat. Now, where are we? Where are we on our legal fight? I am so excited to tell you that our fight is getting stronger. Our fight is getting better. Our team is getting larger, and we are making great progress. As many of you know, if you've been with us for some months, we filed our amended complaint back in February. The defendants filed their responses or their motions to dismiss back on March 15th. Let me be clear when I say a motion to dismiss. They told the court that we do not deserve to be in court. They asked the judge to kick us out of court, that we don't have a right to try to move forward this case. They're going in saying this should not even be looked at by the court. Now, what's interesting, before I tell you some more specifics about what we're actually doing and how we're responding to that, you will remember that the city and the county and the Chamber of Commerce over the last 18 months or so, they've come out with such grandiose statements of how they believe in what they did was wrong and how they're sorry and how we want to have transparency. That's what they said when it was about PR. That's what they said when it was about looking good. But when it came to the courts, it's a different story. But check this video out by the chamber president, and then I'll explain what I'm talking about.
We're sorry that in 1921, our organization did not fulfill its civic and moral obligation to ensure the welfare of all Tulsans. We're sorry that we've not acknowledged this history for nearly 98 years, and we're sorry that for too long we did not directly confront how the racism that enabled the massacre also shaped the economic disparities in our community.
So he said a couple key things there, and that's the chamber president, the Tulsa Regional Chamber president. You notice he said, and this was back in May of 2019, and this is before we filed our lawsuit. And you notice he said, hey, I'm sorry for this happening. And it took us 98 years to tell the truth. But in their lawsuit, they're saying, hey, we waited too long. But how did we wait too long if you've hid this for 98 years? Then he also said, I'm sorry that the racism that fueled the massacre is the same racism that's causing the disparities in Tulsa today between black and white Tulsans. Yet in their lawsuit, they say, hey, this has nothing to do with the massacre. You can't say the massacre is the reason why the disparities are here today. And then thirdly, he talks about in that clip that they're sorry that they didn't fulfill their moral obligation and do what was right at the time of the massacre. And since then, but in their court filing on page 1, they say, quote, the chamber denies, I'm gonna put it in regular words. I mean, this is the legal speak here on the screen, but it's just regular on the street. We had nothing to do with it. We ain't responsible. That's what they're saying to the court. They say we didn't have any role in the massacre and the subsequent happenings. Which is it? Either you're responsible, either you're stepping up to the plate, either you really are sorry and you really want to fix it, or you telling the court, oh no, court, we didn't have anything to do with this. Because when it comes down to it, what they say in front of cameras for PR does not help our clients. It does not help our community. It does not provide justice. What provides justice is getting in front of this court and showing the court what really happened, how this has impacted our people, our community, our survivors, and our descendants. If you agree, just hit me with a justice for Greenwood in your chat, in your comments, justice for Greenwood. If you agree with anything that I'm saying, justice for Greenwood. So we know these people are gaslighting us. We know these people are just filled with hypocrisy. We know these people are not serious about trying to get justice and truth and repair for our survivors, our descendants, and our community. But that's okay. We're not stopping. We're not deterred. We're not tired. We're moving forward. So let me tell you what we're doing to move forward. First of all, I'm really excited because we're going to be getting a deposition of Uncle Red, Mr. Ellis, at 100 years old. This man's 100 years old, and he's ready to give his deposition. He's ready to talk about how his life was impacted by the massacre. Now, he was 6 months old at the time of the massacre, so of course he doesn't remember what happened during the massacre, but he remembers growing up after they left their home in Tulsa and had to go to Claremore, which is 30 miles east for those who are not in the Oklahoma, Tulsa area, and how they left a house that they lived in, and they lived in a tent for many, many years after the massacre because they lost everything. They had to leave only with what they could carry in a horse and buggy. They lost everything. And he lived in a tent. And he talks about that. And I'm excited that we're going to get his deposition. We're also going to be filing our motions, our responses to their motions to dismiss. They are due May 30th, right before the centennial. We will be prepared for that. Our legal team is ready. We have been researching. And look, let me be clear. We don't know what the judge is going to decide. I got to tell any client I've ever worked with, I'm not the judge. All I can say is I believe we have the law on our side. I believe we have the facts on our side. And more importantly, I believe we have right on our side. If you believe we have right on our side to get justice for Greenwood, hashtag justice for Greenwood. If you believe that it's right, it's the right thing to do to provide compensation for what was lost, put justice for Greenwood in your text. If you believe that people like Mr. Ellis and people like Viola Fletcher and people like Mother Randall deserve an opportunity to be heard in court, put justice for Greenwood. If you believe that. And I believe that if you're on this call with us tonight, you believe in justice. You believe in reparations. You believe in restoration. You believe in doing what is right. And at the Justice for Greenwood Foundation, we simply say, let's do the respectful and the right thing. Now, that's not all we're doing, because this week alone, we had to file 3 additional cases. That's right. That's right. That's right. We filed 3 additional cases because, well, I'm going to tell you why in a second. But first, I want you to listen to another video right quick.
We're not trying to pretend that something didn't happen. We're not trying to just say, oh, it's in the past. We are actively pursuing the truth on this, wherever it leads us. And we're doing that in a transparent way. The disparity and the lack of trust that exists is well earned by the city government and was developed over a century. So I don't expect that to go away very quickly. That's the whole reason we created this committee, was that we recognized at the outset that the city of Tulsa has not earned trust from Black Tulsans in particular on this issue. And so we want oversight. We want people pressing us and asking tough questions like we got tonight.
Okay, so that's again our good friend, the mayor of City of Tulsa, Mayor GT Bynum. Now remember what he said there in that clip. He said a couple of very important things. He said that the city has not earned the trust of Black Tulsans. Well, we all knew that. That was an easy question, easy answer. But then he said, we want to be transparent, right? Did you hear him say that? Did you hear that? He said, I want to be transparent. And I want people to ask us the tough questions so we can get to the truth. You heard him say that. However, when we just ask him the easy question, not even a tough question, not ask him, but ask the city of Tulsa. I personally sent a letter to the city of Tulsa utilizing my Oklahoma legal right to get open records from my government. They told me no. And what records did I want? I wanted records related to the massacre. Now, while they're telling cameras and doing interviews and trying to make themselves look good by saying, we're transparent, we want to be open. When I asked them for records that I am legally entitled to receive for my clients, for my community, so we can really understand the truth of what's going on with the massacre and the continuing harm, this is the response I received. The city sent me an email on February 10th, basically threatening me because I am a civil rights attorney, because I am doing my job, trying to get justice for my community, trying to get truth for my community, trying to get restoration for my community, that because of that, I don't have the right to speak to the city clerk, a government official. Guys, the gaslighting is infuriating, it's nauseating, it's suffocating. On one end, we want to be transparent, but on the other end, they won't even give us all the documents because we don't even know the truth. We don't even know the truth of everything that's happened with the massacre because they continue the conspiracy of silence that has been in this city since the massacre. If you agree with that, if you understand what I'm saying, justice for Greenwood. Just drop a justice for Greenwood if that's something you agree with. If you're tired of the gaslighting, if you're tired of the city of Tulsa and other powerful entities in the city of Tulsa utilizing the massacre as a brand, as an opportunity to make money, to have cultural tourism, to try to exploit our people continually, justice for Greenwood. That is why we filed these additional lawsuits against the city of Tulsa, against the Tulsa Development Authority, and against the Tulsa Metropolitan Planning Area Commission, because they refuse to even provide documents they're legally provided to do. But it's a new day. We don't have to take that. We have the legal team, the resources, and the gall to continue to fight with everything we have. Some of you heard me talk about Hal Singer. Hal Singer was a very world famous jazz musician from Tulsa, from Greenwood. He was a Greenwood survivor. He was a client of mine, but he passed away 2 months before we filed our lawsuit in September. He was 100 years old. He was blind. He was on hospice. He had just had a stroke. And he said, I still want to be a part of the lawsuit because I still want to get justice for what happened to my community. He wrote a letter and he said, regardless of what happens, we may lose some battles, but we must continue to fight for our rights and our dignity. And that's what we're doing. And if you believe in the fight for our rights and our dignity for Greenwood, put justice for Greenwood. And if you believe even stronger go ahead and go to justiceforgreenwood.org and make a donation. And if you believe even more, go to justiceforgreenwood.org and sign up to work with us. And if you still want to do something else, make sure you send to Mayor Bynum that Tulsa owes. We need you to help us get justice for our survivors, our descendants, and our community. We need you to make sure that justice for Greenwood happens. We need you to make sure that we no longer be exploited for this next 100 years that will happen if we don't stop it. If we don't remember that Hal Singer said, we must fight for what? Say it with me. Our rights. I can hear you. I can hear you through the screen. I can hear you. For our rights and our dignity. So that's what we're doing here. But that's not it. Let's go to the next slide. That's not it. That's not it. Remember I told you earlier that we had so many claims denied. We have millions of dollars in insurance claims denied. And our team has been researching this. And I have a great update. We have found about 7 or 8 insurance companies that are still active today. That's right. 7 or 8 insurance companies. And guess what? We've reached out to them. We sent them letters. We're in contact with them. We're letting them know that, hey, just because you walked away from your obligation 100 years ago because you used white supremacy, you used racism to deny these claims that you now see on this screen, these people who worked hard, who built up businesses, homes, and possessions, and you just decided, I'm not going to pay it because I don't have to. That day is over with. We're coming forward. So I'm asking all of you out there, if you're a descendant, and I know our DJ Mercer, our descendant coordinator, is going to talk about this more, and you have insurance documents, you have anything related to an insurance claim, we need you to provide that to us. We need to understand who you are. If you have a claim number, I can't make any guarantees. I'm not making any guarantees. I don't want to get your expectations. I'm saying we're guaranteed going to get you something back, but I can guarantee we're going to try. I can guarantee we're going to do like Hal Singer. We're going to fight. We're going to run down every lead we can. That's what this Justice for Greenwood campaign is about. That's what Justice for Greenwood Foundation is about. That's what our legal team from around the nation, our academics, our scholars, our community activists, everyone that's working with us, that's what this is about. And if you want to be a part of this movement, go to justiceforgreenwood.org right now and sign up. Go to justiceforgreenwood.org right now, make a donation, and put in your hashtag Justice for Greenwood in your chat. Now, I've covered a lot. I'm almost out of time. We do have other people that's here to present who have wonderful information. I got myself all hyped. I need a drink of water, but I just want to tell you, it is such an honor to talk to you about this issue. It is such an honor to be able to tell you that our survivors over 100 years old are thankful for you, thankful that they are not being forgotten, thankful that we're not going to allow them to be continually exploited, and thankful that we're still in the fight for their rights and their dignity. So with that, I want to introduce my good friend, my buddy, my mentee, and more importantly, our descendant coordinator who's been working, talking with descendants from all over the nation, getting their stories, doing interviews with them. Couldn't do this work without this brother. I love this brother. He loves this work, and I'm talking about nobody else but my main man, DJ Mercer. So DJ, do your thing.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, my brother DeMario. Before we get into the descendant spotlight, I want to make sure that I highlight the descendants I've seen in the chat. Eloise Price Rowland, shout out to you. Virgil Rowe, shout out to you. Kelly Burks, shout out to you. Thank you for coming to our town hall today. And just let me know in the chat, let us know where you're viewing from. We want to show Oklahoma and Tulsa that this is not a Tulsa issue. This is not an Oklahoma issue. This is an American issue. So put in the chat where you're viewing from. Today, we have 2 wonderful speakers, 2 wonderful descendants that I would love to highlight. But before we get into that, I just want to give a brief introduction into who they are. We have Jaya Rapp as well as Kiwa Narula. let's give them a virtual hand, clap it up wherever you are, and let's give it up for them real fast. Jaya Kiwa, welcome to the town hall. How are y'all doing today?
Hi.
All right. So my first question, and Jaya, you can go first, or Kiwa, whoever would like to go first, is my first question is, who are you a descendant of?
Sure, so I can start. My grandparents are Simeon Neal Sr. and Sue Brown Neal, and Kiwa. Those are Kiwa's great grandparents. And the pictures that you've got here on the left, you'll see Grandpa and Grandma, or I'm sorry, on the right. And then Kiwa, that's your grandpa, right?
Yeah, that's the wedding picture of my grandparents, Simeon Neal Jr. and Rosalie Neal. So on the right are Simeon Neal Jr.'s parents, Simeon Neal Sr. and Susan Neal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the picture that we have there on the right is my dad in the middle, James, who was not quite born at the time of the massacre, and his two brothers, both Junior, my Uncle Junior and Uncle Harold, and they both actually fought in World War II. And so this is one of my favorite pictures of them. They were able to actually spend time together while they were in Europe, and they all did make it home safely.
Great. That's good to hear. So I know I've been talking to you, Jaya, about your ancestor, but the people don't know what made your ancestor special. So I'll start it off with Jaya, and then Kiwa, you can chime in with this question. What made your ancestor special?
I would start with the entrepreneurial spirit is strong, especially in Kiwa. But our ancestors actually had a tailoring shop, the Neal Tailoring Shop, that was in the Greenwood district, and it was flourishing at the time of the massacre. But it really was that entrepreneurial spirit that they had. They were able to rebuild when they moved to Chicago, as well as the importance in education. I think that was really distilled in all of us, descendants within the family. Kiwa, do you want to add?
No, I think that was it. I think as all of us know, it's very difficult to move forward after a traumatic experience. So I think what makes all the survivors special is the fact that, you know, after such a trauma, to just be able to, I found it astounding that our great grandparents, once they resettled, they resettled in Chicago, that they were able to have more children. I mean, even that is just like to keep their marriage going and to keep the fire burning and to have more children. And our great grandparents were able to reopen their business in Chicago. I think is just awesome.
Thank you for sharing. So I know that you all had as descendants, I know you all had a very visceral reaction. That I had a very visceral reaction to what Mayor Bynum was saying about cash payments and compensation for descendants. So my question to you, Kiwa, I'll actually first is, do you believe that your family should be compensated for what was destroyed as a business owner? Like, imagine if somebody just came and destroyed your business and then somebody else was like, nah, we shouldn't pay for that. What do you say to that? Do you believe your family should be compensated for what was lost or destroyed?
Definitely. Even with COVID and everything, my mind always first goes to the elders. So I always think less of myself because I'm young, I've got a life to live, I can bounce back from whatever, but I really, really, really want the elders who are original survivors and descendants to be compensated. I mean, honestly, could you imagine if there were still people who were enslaved still alive? Like if there were survivors of slavery, everyone in America would be trying to make sure that they were taken care of. And I think it's the same. It's an important moment in American history, and especially for those 3 survivors, but also any descendants that are elders should be taken care of. I mean, flat out, if we're not getting insurance money If there was no original insurance money, I think they deserve it.
Absolutely. Jaya, would you like to chime in?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the what was lost can't really be fully made whole just with, compensation, but that is where you have to start. A livelihood was taken in many instances, and worse, right? People lost family members, they lost huge parts of their life. And so to rebuild after that really took a lot of digging deep to move on. And if that were to happen today, right, with a natural disaster or anything else like that, you would expect to be made whole, or at least to be helped by the government in some way. That's a part of the social construct that we have. And so the answer has to be yes to the question.
So I have a couple more questions. If there's something you could say to Mayor Bynum, what would you say? As descendants of Greenwood, what would you say to Mayor Bynum?
So I guess I'll start. I think for me, it's one thing to acknowledge, and I think Demario said this, to acknowledge what's happened is a start, right? However, it's really important, again, to make whole what was destroyed or what was lost. And we really do have to work to make sure that those people who suffered because of the massacre are not continuing to suffer, and those who profited either intentionally or unintentionally do not continue to profit from this resurgence and interest in what's happening in Tulsa with the massacre and now with the centennial.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Kiwa, would you like to give your perspective, or if you could say anything to Mayor Bynum regarding compensation, reparations, what would you say to him?
I would say that this is bigger than a party affiliation or kind of saying what your cohorts want you to say. It's really an individual matter of heart. It's an individual matter of being on the right side of history or rectifying history. And it will be such a powerful position to really make his mark as a mayor by doing the right thing. He will just disappear into the history of all the other mayors of Tulsa that maybe no one remembers, but he has the opportunity to make this right and really make a name for himself by being on the right side of history. And we see this has been done by the mayor of Evanston, Illinois. I'm in Chicago, so Evanston is right next door, by making her mark by doing reparations for slavery. I mean, it is possible, and he could really do something big if he has the makings of an incredible mayor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. I have one last question for both of you. Jaya, I would like you to answer this first. So what does justice for Greenwood look like for you as a descendant?
I think the biggest thing, and I mentioned this earlier, really is, of course, helping those who suffered at the hands of the massacre, but really making sure that as we have more attention and more acknowledgement of what happened, again, we don't allow those people who benefited from the massacre in the first place to benefit again. Right. There is something just so wrong about that this is now being turned into some sort of cultural tourism event or campaign by the city. And so if there is a way for not only more people to learn and understand, but to really work towards a better future, one that benefits not just the survivors and the descendants, but anybody who maybe would have tapped into the entrepreneurial spirit and beauty of the original Greenwood, that's where we have to go. That's what justice looks like to me. Kiwa?
I agree. Like I said earlier, I think that all of the elders, anyone who is in their 60s and above, especially those over 100 who were there, need to be compensated. I feel like there needs to be an investment or a fund created for Black business owners who are descendants. and just anyone who is in that area, around that area, any of the impoverished areas in the Tulsa or Greenwood areas that have the inspiration to start a business. It should be easier for Black people to start businesses in that area. And yeah, I think that's the main thing. I agree with Jaya, and that anybody who's making a film or a TV show or popping in to tell the story needs to give back, and that needs to be a mandatory thing.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much, Jaya and Kiwa, for coming on today and giving us a brief instance into your life as descendants and sharing your so eloquent thoughts about Greenwood and reparations and compensation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you all are a descendant, please reach out to me in the chat, wherever you are. Reach out to me. My email is dmercer@solomonsimmons.com, especially if you have claims for insurance claim numbers. Also, if you have any land, trusts, deeds, etc. We are fighting for you. As you've seen in the chat, we've had descendants, viewers from all across the nation. I've seen Philly, Georgia, Chicago, Missouri. This is not a Tulsa issue. This is not an Oklahoma issue. This is an American issue. Demario, thank you for having me in the Descendant Spotlight today. If you are a descendant, like I said, please reach out to me. We'd love to have you. I'd love to talk to you more about your story, as well as who you are, and learn your family's history. Thank you so much.
Sounds good, DJ. Great job as always, and great job by Jaya and her cousin. They did a fantastic job. So look, guys, I know you have already learned a lot, but we have much more in store for you. So go ahead and drop that Justice for Greenwood hashtag, and go ahead and share it right now. Share it with somebody on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your YouTube, wherever you're watching it. Go on and share. So now I want to bring up three people that is going to answer some questions for us on a panel discussion. I'm going to help moderate that. I'm going to first start with my relative, Chief Egunwale Amasan. We have been working on this issue together for over 20 years, and we have done so much together on this particular issue for over 20 years. And I'm so excited to have him with us. We have our state representative who's fighting for us right now as we speak down in Oklahoma City, fighting against these crazy unconstitutional Trump-type laws. Our Representative Regina Goodwin, whose family is one of the most important families of Greenwood, who've done so much for our community. Representative Goodwin, it's so good to see you. And then I have one of my brothers, one of my co-counsel, all the way from Virginia, my good friend, Maynard Henry Sr., former Marine, tough guy, smart guy. Just glad to see all three of you. How y'all doing tonight?
Good evening.
All right, it's good to see everybody. Well, good deal. Well, I understand they're going to put the questions.
Good.
We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. We get so many. So if you guys, Chad, if you want to put the first question on the screen, and let's get rolling. Okay. What is the role you believe Black elected officials should play in fighting for justice for Greenwood? Well, since we have a Black elected official on the call, Representative Goodwin, we're going to start that with you. Representative Goodwin, can you hear me? Hey, Chief, go ahead and take that. Let's see if we can get what's going on with Representative Goodwin's.
Mario, I'm not hearing you.
Okay. Well, Chief, go ahead and answer that question. Let's see if we can
hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay. The question is, what is the role you believe Black elected officials should play in fighting for Greenwood? Chief, go ahead and answer that question for us.
First of all, I think it's the role that any Can you not hear me?
No.
Can you
We
hear
can't-
me?
We can
No?
hear you now. We can hear you now.
Wow. I can. You can?
Yes.
You know, basically, I think that any elected official, or for that matter, any person that cares about, first of all, their heritage, their family, the larger family of community. I think the first thing is you need to understand that if you're going to talk about reparations or anything that is due, you need to be honest about it, and you need to be vocal about it. I know that this has been a fight for decades, and so before I was an elected official 20 plus years ago, DeMario, I was in the same rooms with you when the first cases were fought, when the descendants and the survivors were in the same room, and the fight was just as strong then. I'm glad that you're reviving it with a different creative angle. And what we have to do as elected officials is be honest about it. We have to absolutely acknowledge that the state was involved. We have to acknowledge that the city was. We have to acknowledge that police officers and folks that are sworn to protect and serve were involved. So the first thing that elected officials can do is talk about the culpability and quite frankly, the murderous acts that took place by the very folks that were supposed to be protecting others. So after that, I also think that when it comes to law, when it comes to policy, as it happens at the state capitol, a couple of years ago, to talk about monies for institutions in Greenwood that are deserving. And if you see that people are not wanting to do right, you have to have those conversations, and you have to talk about it. When you go to the Capitol and you're talking about reparations, and you're having to fight with the attorneys that are supposed to be representing people, and they keep saying, no, we want to do a task force, and you didn't ask for a task force, you asked for reparations. You have to have those conversations. And so I think the bottom line is be informed, understand what you do have at your disposal, and also understand that when you've got a majority Senate and a majority legislature, that folks are not going to want to do right, unfortunately, in Oklahoma, and continue to fight the fight. So I think, one, speaking to it, taking action, and when you see putting up blockades, continue to fight. And I also think as elected officials, we have to do what we can personally for the survivors and the descendants also. So if it's not happening at the Capitol, what can you do outside of the Capitol? And so I'm certainly engaged in that also.
Absolutely. We sure appreciate it. And like you said, we were in so many of those rooms together. Obviously, your uncle, the great Jim Goodwin, was one of the attorneys on that first case. We're forever indebted to him and your family. If it wasn't for the Goodwin family, we would not even have the buildings, the few buildings, the one block we still have, if it was not for your family stepping up and saving those. So, Maynard, what is your thought about what Black elected officials or Black leaders or community members, what should they be doing? What is your thoughts on that here in Oklahoma and abroad? Can't hear you, Maynard.
Okay. Yeah, I think Black officials, just like white officials, have a responsibility, not only a legal responsibility, but a moral responsibility. They were put in office to represent all the people, not some of the people. If they're not representing the constituents who are raising issues, then they're not fulfilling their legal roles, let alone their moral obligations. So to that extent, I just want to say one of the things to Mayor Bynum, but this applies to all our leaders, Black, white, and everything in between. Their ancestors aren't here to pay, and my ancestors aren't here to collect. But they are here to pay, and I am here to collect. And so with that philosophy in mind, they need to do everything, elected officials need to do everything in their power to make sure that justice is given to those who were injured. We have a whole class of people, a whole community. We're talking about basically what took place at the massacre is murder. Murder has no statute of limitation. We're also talking about genocide. We're talking about ethnocide. We're talking about wiping away a whole class of people, a whole generation. In other words, there's not children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that are not in existence today because their ancestors were murdered. They didn't have the opportunity to fall in love, to make offspring, and to bring forth a new generation and a next generation and a next generation. There's a price to be paid for that. And so those leaders, those elected officials, black or white or otherwise, have an obligation to make sure that the unborn are spoken for as well as the born.
You know, Mayor, when you said that about the generations of people that are not here, I thought about Dr. A.C. Jackson, you know, our great surgeon, who was considered one of the greatest surgeons in the world at the time, and how when he was killed during the massacre, he had no children. You know, so we lost not only this man and this great surgeon, but we, like you said, we lost the legacy of what could have been, and what could have been not only for Tulsa and for Oklahoma, for this entire world. So you're exactly right. Chief, I see you back with us. I hope, you know, we're all dealing with technology in the age of COVID. So I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, we're still like you. If you want to say anything about what should elected officials, black or otherwise, as Maynard said, and Representative Goodwin, what should they be doing to try to get justice for Greenwood, in your opinion? I don't think he can get here. So let's go to the next question, Chad. All right. Okay, somebody says, what can I, as a white person, do to help black Tulsans receive justice and reparations for the massacre? Either one of you guys want to take that question?
Sure, I'll start, Demario. You know, I always had this saying that if white people don't want us here, they should have picked their own damn cotton. And with that thought in mind, what white people can do to fix this problem out in Tulsa is they need to go march and stand in front of the Capitol. They need to stand in front of every representative's door, their official elected door, their personal residence. They need to march en masse, because guess what? White people created this problem and they need to fix it. See, everyone thinks this is a black problem. No, there were black innocent people there on May 31st doing what they do, raising Wall Street. And here comes a mob, a lynching mob, and they murdered, they destroyed. They caused the problem. They need to fix it. Their ancestors benefit from tearing down and killing. They're still benefiting from. And that's the whole problem with this whole system of racism in America that is really at the epicenter of Tulsa. That they created this problem. They don't want to fix it. They like the power structure, but they need to understand that this war of economics and capitalism, it cannot stand the way it's going to continue to do for the next 200 years. It just won't exist the way it needs to. And so white people need to come together en masse, recognize that if you believe in justice and honor and have any sort of character, they need to get together and call upon their white brothers and sisters to fix the problem.
Thanks, Maynard. Representative Goodwin, before you answer that question, I just want to, again, thank you for being so selfless with your time. I see you in your vehicle. I know, because I work down at the Capitol, that you're probably still either in Oklahoma City about to get on the turnpike to come from Tulsa, or you are just got into Tulsa and pulled over so you can be with us tonight. And we thank you for that type of dedication, the type of tireless service that you provide our community, and everything that you do. I just want to let you know we certainly appreciate it, and so glad you are a partner with us with Justice for Greenwood. But to that question, someone sounds like they're searching their heart. A lot of people were searching their heart. A lot of white people were searching their heart, particularly in the midst of George Floyd and with the centennial coming up. I think this question comes from a good place. What would you say to someone who's saying, hey, what can I do as just a white person? What can I do to make sure justice and reparations come to those who deserve it?
DeMario, I was
Yes.
just going to answer that very quickly, reiterating what had been said. One is acknowledging that race is an issue in America. It always has been. And for a white person to have those conversations with white people, right? And they have an opportunity, I think, almost every day to engage in some kind of conversation that says when folks want to say, why are we still talking about this issue? That happened hundreds of years ago. Why are you holding me accountable? They have to be held accountable because they are today the benefactors of all that happened 100 years ago. And white folks need to be honest with other white folks. And again, we are not really, after 100 years, we ought to be tired of trying to be the teachers. Everybody understands needs to be done. And I applaud anybody that wants to contribute and wants to be honest and wants to help. And what white folks can do, those that are intelligent enough to be about something more than escapism and excuses, I want them to talk to another white person. That's what they can do. That can be more help probably than we can because we live it every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, guys, let's go to the next question. Okay, this question says, what can regular people, and I'm probably thinking about descendants, do to stop the exploitation happening with the city financially gaining from telling and selling this story?
Well, it seems to me if you can't sell something unless there's a buyer. And so for all the folks that have their wares and they're hawking their books or whatever they're doing, you don't have to buy it. And so when they talk about regular people, what can do to stop the exploitation, there's not going to be, it's all about the dollar. And if you're not sharing your dollar, giving turning your dollar over and buying these books, then they'll be purchasing. So one is to understand that concept.
Absolutely. Maynard?
You cannot stop people though in books and making movies, but you can determine what you're going to do.
Right.
Let me put it in simple terms. In this scenario, in the context of this question, you're either the pimp or the prostitute. Which one are you? And so if you're the city, you might be considered the pimp. If you're the private entities, you're probably the pimp. If you're the regular people and you're hawking your wares and you're buying from the city and you're buying from these entities that are exploiting, then you're probably the prostitute. Quite frankly, if you got any more morality and character, you probably don't want to be the pimp nor the prostitute.
They just made it plain. Made it plain like a 30-year lawyer does. That's a trial lawyer right there, ladies and gentlemen. Well, man, I know that Chief is having some technological issues. I hope he can join us, but we're going to go to the next question. I think we have time for 2 more questions. This question is, how is this legal action different from others in pursuing justice for descendants? And I'll take the first stab at that and let Maynard jump in. Well, number one, and we get this question a lot, and it's funny, we get it almost every time we do this. The first lawsuit, well, first of all, the first lawsuits first started way back in 1921. That's just to acknowledge that Black people started fighting this issue in the courts from the very beginning. Black lawyers like the great B.C. Franklin, Buck Colbert Franklin. So, let's be clear about that. And those cases didn't move forward because of one thing and one thing only, and that was white supremacy and racism. The cases that happened in the early 2000s, the Representative Goodwin's family, Uncle Jim Goodwin was the local counsel, and we had, the best attorneys, civil rights attorneys in the nation at the time, trial lawyers, Johnny Cochran and Charles Ogletree, and so many others. And I was happy to just be a clerk, getting coffee and running errands for that group. That was a federal case. Our case is a state case. Also, they were going under what's called 1983. We're utilizing what's called the public nuisance standard. And so those are the two main issues there. And what does that mean? Well, we trying to get over the statute of limitations. I firmly believe we should be able to. Again, I'm not the judge. The judge makes a decision, because our public nuisance statute allows you to get around statute of limitations as long as the nuisance or the problem is still happening. And no one can deny that there is still a problem directly from the massacre. Even our defendants, the city and the chamber and others, they even have admitted that. You saw some of that on the videos tonight. So that's why this is a little bit different. Also, the case in the early 2000s was for very specific people. Our case is set up that it will benefit the entire community and individuals who lost so much during the massacre. So, Maynard, do you want to add anything to that? I would love to hear your perspective.
Well, I think you said a lot there, and all accurate and correct, Mario. We have to talk about the things that took place not only in 1921, but what continues on today. The harm and injury is still there. Not only from the economic harm is still there, because you have structures that were built, this highway that is still there that has severed the city in half. And so the nuisance is still ongoing. That is 100% accurate. But what we also have to look at are the things that we call the intangibles, the psychological harms, the emotional harms, the transgenerational epigenetics, things that have taken place that those that are 100-year-old, Mother Randall, they've experienced some things. But there are grandchildren and great-grandchildren that, although they did not actually eyewitness the injury and the massacre, the murder, the destruction, they still have, from a transgenerational perspective, harm that they are actually experiencing. They will have flashbacks or recalls of trauma that is very real, as if they actually eyewitnessed that harm. That is the continuing nuisance as well. And so we have to deal with that. That is part of the construct of the lawsuit, whether implicit or explicit within the lawsuit. And that is something that the judge cannot dismiss. When you talk about genocide and murder, how can they say that nuisance does not continue? Because that's why our system of laws say that there is no statute of limitations on bringing a murder charge. And so there has been no one brought to justice for the murders that took place in 1921.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we just have a few minutes left, and the last thing I want to get to, Representative Goodwin, is I know you guys at the Black Caucus, you guys have a very special event coming up. Chad, if you could put that particular slide up, it's a little bit down, because I just want Representative Goodwin to be able to talk about their event that's coming up. She is the chair of the Oklahoma Black Caucus, and I just want her to be able to talk about the event that they're having and how they hope to honor the massacre and massacre victims.
Yeah. We do this every 2 years, and it's called the 18th African American elected to the legislature in 1908. And what we do is we raise scholarship Oklahoma. In doing that, we absolutely would have to acknowledge the 100 years of the race massacre, and to be on the program. The descendants are going to talk about generational excellence. And so while we know, as my great grandparents, we do see the descendants and businesses that are still going on now today, whether it's Jack, still have that resilience and that fight to keep moving forward. Certainly we first, and we're providing them with tangible, usable
well, we really getting a lot of
material and more even today. So that is what we're doing right now, and we've been doing it for a while. And even as recently as today, we want our survivors to be comfortable now because they deserve it.
Well, Representative Goodwin, we thank you again for so much.
And we're going to have really wonderful guests like Abby Phillip and Sarah Seidner. All right.
Hey guys, thank you so much. We're going to put the upcoming AC Hamlin dinner on all our social media. We ask all of our followers and supporters to support that dinner, support Representative Goodwin. She's a fighter for us. We thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you so much, Attorney Maynard Henry. Appreciate everything you're doing for our community. Both of you, I love you. Thank you so much. Justice for Greenwood. As we get ready to wrap this up, I want to just tell you about a few things that are coming up, a few announcements, some upcoming events. I talked about earlier that our oldest survivor, Mother Fletcher, her birthday is May 10th. She will be 107 years old. I'm going to say it again. She will be 107 years old. We're going to do something very special for her. We will give you more information about that very, very shortly. But we want everyone who believes in justice, who believes in respect, who believes in just doing what's right, to show this woman the love she deserves. She's a wonderful woman, and she deserves to know that we love her. If the city doesn't love her, if the chamber and these other entities, if they won't do right by her, we will do right by her. Next, I want to acknowledge we received so many donations, so much support, but we received a $2,000 donation from a former, a fellow Booker T. Washington Hornet, like I am, Joe Deere, for him and on behalf of the Cherokee Tribal Council. And Joe Deere has already let us know there is more help and more support that he's going to garner for us. So we always feel good when we see someone who's in the community, who's doing great things now, reaching back to help push us forward as we push forward towards justice for Greenwood. And lastly, the last thing I want to remind you of is that we need your help. We need your help. We need your help. And what does that mean? We need you to follow us on our social media pages, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Spread our story, spread our narrative. We need you to go to justiceforgreenwood.org. That's justiceforgreenwood.org. Make a donation if it's $5, $50, or $500. Do whatever you can. Every dollar counts, and every dollar goes directly towards the fight for justice for Greenwood. Every single penny goes for the fight for justice for Greenwood. And also remember, if you believe in justice for Greenwood, do not be afraid to tell the city of Tulsa that Tulsa does owe, that Tulsa owes. And when you're writing that, think about what you heard about Mother Randall and Mr. Ellis and Mother Fletcher. Think about what you heard from Jaya and her cousin about their family having to flee to Chicago and start over. Think about what we talked about Dr. A.C. Jackson dying without having any children. Think about what Maynard and Representative Goodwin had to say about we need what my grandmother would call good white folks to step up and step out and make this happen, because you know what's right. You're in those spaces. You're in those proximity with your family members and your coworkers, and say, hey, this is not right, to hold these people from having justice. Go ahead, make a donation. Go ahead and sign up. Go ahead and make sure we have justice for Greenwood. We have justice for Greenwood. We have justice for Greenwood. Thank you so much. We'll be talking to you real soon. If you have a question, reach out. Until then, remember what Hal Singer said. We may lose a battle, but we must continue to fight for our rights and our dignity. Good night and justice for Greenwood.